Hello, you're listening to Otaku Spirit Anime Cast. My name's Andrew, and I'm joined here with Chris.
Yo.
Today's episode is a mailbag episode. Kind of worked out well since we were kind of thinking we might do a mailbag episode because we're backing up on questions, and just so happens got quite busy today, so it turned out to work out, so sort of. So hopefully you guys will stick around. I know that some people don't like the mailbags. It's not one of our bigger hit podcast episodes, but we always get into some interesting discussions because people will bring up questions that we sometimes have never really discussed. So that's always a good thing. As always, we're at otakuspirit.com. That's where you can go for all our information there, social media links and everything, Discord links so you can join and submit questions there, just like all these other lovely people have that we have questions from. So yes, let's dive right into it. Let's get a ton knocked out. Hopefully we don't run out of them. If not, we'll have to do a call out for them. So let's kick things off with the first one, which I think it was RL Dennis was replying to somebody else presenting a question, and he made a better question out of it. I don't know. I didn't see the original question, so I don't know what the original question is. But he says, I guess a different way of putting this is, do you think we'd ever reach the point of oversaturation? I think they're in regards to anime, because I think the question that came up that was deleted was something to do with, I think, too many per season, too many shows per season, which is obviously a thing that's been for like the last, I don't know, 3 or 4 years, like having at least 30 per season, upwards of 45 per season. So what do you think what do you think, is it oversaturation point? Are we reaching it? Are we going to reach it? What's the oversaturation point? It's the question mark.
It's a trick question because
It is a trick question. No, I'm joking. I don't know.
The problem is that theoretically, yes, the idea is that there's too many shows and you can't watch that many shows. The only problem with that concept is that there is a specific, supply and demand thing. As long as there is a demand for the product, the manufacturer or producer will produce the product that the consumer is consuming.
Which is the biggest problem we have right now, because everybody's complaining there's too many isekai shows, and it's like, well, people watch it. Yeah. So they're going to keep doing it. And I think what you have right now is a lot of people, these companies are obviously going to have an issue with producing something and airing something that nobody's going to watch, because then that's when you do get nobody watches my show, when there's so many shows out there. And it seems like right now, if anything, they're saying that that's an easy. That's for sure. We're going to get people to watch that because people like isekais as much as people don't think people like isekais.
Yeah, and that's what I was getting ready to get to the point of, is that yes, but that's what genres are for. So if you are watching the shows that you like, eventually the shows that you don't like will not be watched, i.e. eventually something will give out. That's when we've talked about the anime bubble and how that all worked and all the craziness involved with that. And we might be looking at a second anime bubble and how that's going to work into the entire equation and all that stuff. So eventually there's this give and take. So in a way, I do agree that there is a lot of shows being produced. Eventually there's going to be a point where they can't keep up with all the shows that they're producing, and then they'll have to cut back. And when they cut back, then the shows will kind of level out and all that stuff. So there's always going to be a give and take. They're going to try to be overly ambitious. They're going to hurt themselves. They're going to ruin their reputation, blah, blah, blah. So it's always this big old circle of fixing the problem and eventually. But no, I don't personally believe that it's possible to really oversaturate.
Yeah, and I think we're probably seeing right now where it's trying to build up to that point where they're going to eventually find if there's a saturation point. Because obviously, as I've mentioned before, we mentioned it we had a podcast, Is Anime Dying? And the whole statement there was that I went back and I researched every single year, like I think as far as back as the late 80s, I think it was. And the sign there was that we had like so many years where there was like 4 at most shows a season. It's hard to really think that there was a time when there was only 4. Could you imagine? I don't know if I'd have enough content to do my channel with 4 shows a season. That's crazy to think at some point that was the case. And they've been building it up since then. It keeps building and it keeps building. Yes, we even had a crash, but it still keeps building. And what I think is happening is that, yes, obviously anime is becoming more and more mainstream. It's becoming more and more popular. And so a lot of these studios are feeling comfortable with producing a lot of content, and more studios are being created. Those studios wouldn't be created unless there is a demand for it. Now, yes, eventually it's going to reach that peaking point, but I think right now they're trying to test that. They're trying to push that to see how far they can go. And all these other companies want to try out their stake in it. They want to create these new studios to see if they can create their own stake in it. And I think what you're having happen, especially as this report came out for the last 2 years, really, this report came out that stated that in 2021, there was like, I think they said like 30, I'll have to double check it. It's like 30% of the anime studios seeing themselves go in the red in 2021. So obviously that is a sign that there's a possible oversaturation. Now, the thing to keep in mind with that study is a lot of them are citing issues with the pandemic. They're citing issues with delays, production issues, which, yes, in 2021, we've seen a lot of that. And yes, in 2020, we've seen a lot of that. So we were having more issues with production issues and, yes, technically the pandemic. And I think those are causing issues. But I do believe there's also an aspect that eventually there's only so many minutes in a day, and there's only so many people to physically watch it. And so, yes, what you're going to get, and then we get in the West too. A lot of anime fans in the West have the same issue. We can all watch it on demand, unlike a lot of people in Japan who are watching on television, don't really have it on a streaming service. They have it more locked in. Of course, they could probably DVR or whatever, and there's probably video on demand options there. But over here, even for us, when we can open up an app and watch it whenever we want to, the most common thing I get from a lot of people is that I can't watch all this. I can only watch 1 or 2 shows a season. I only have so much time in my week. I can only watch them on Saturday night or something like that. Otherwise, it's the kids and the wife and stuff. They don't have that option. I have that option because I do that for a living. Chris struggles with it because he has a daytime job outside of the podcast and everything. So I can see where that issue is for a lot of people. And what comes from that, having so many shows that nobody watches. I mean, if you look at Mal, you'll see like the top. Typically, it's a little bit different this season. This season's a very different case. It's much more spread out. But often case when you see like big shonen seasons where like Attack on Titan comes out and stuff, you'll see those ones get like 1.2 million users. And you'll have like 2 other shows that have like 500,000 users. And then everything else is like 30,000 and lower. And like most of them are not even about 10,000. And the difficulty that shows is that a majority of people are only watching, at most 3 shows. And so that oversaturation means that people are missing things. That's kind of why we do what we do. Is what we do is we tell people, yes, we know you can't watch all 45, but we're going to tell you what's in each one of them. We're going to tell you where those gems are at so that you can find those ones you want. But a majority of users, they're not going to be able to catch all that stuff. And I think that's where that saturation comes into effect. And I think we're at it. I think we're at that point where I think if it pushes it anymore, it's going to get really bad. I mean, if it's at the point now where I have trouble keeping up, granted, I'm trying to do other things like the Mushoku Tensei novel. I'm trying to do some other stuff, get caught up on Bleach, rewatch Bleach and stuff. So there's other stuff that does sway me even as a full-time anime viewer and covering person. But if I have struggles, the world has struggles. The nice thing that happens, and why I don't really necessarily think you can classify it strictly as an oversaturation, is that it's something for everybody. I think the problem that we're facing right now technically is that it's too much of one type of genre. I do love the variety. I love 45 shows because that means that we can get 3 or so sports shows. We can get 3 or so romance shows. We can get 3 or so these many shows. It's covering a spectrum of genres. The problem that we're facing right now is that it's too much in one genre. That's why we had, was it like one point I think it was last year, we had a season where there was like 11 isekai shows. And that's a problem because then nobody that watches isekai shows is going to watch all those. People that like fantasy aren't going to be able to watch all of those. I do like when there's a spread. I think the issue that we're having right now is we're not getting enough shoujos. We're not getting enough of romance shows. We're not getting enough pure comedy shows. And that's where I think having too many shows is a problem. It's okay to have a lot of shows. It's bad to have a lot of shows that are all in the same ballpark. They're all in the same flavor. That's where I think you're going to have that oversaturation issue. And I think we've had plenty of seasons where it does that. And I think that's a bad thing. So Anything else on that one?
No, just like I said, it really just comes down to when everything balances out, you'll see where it really kind of. I think it's actually, in a way, I think this is a good thing. Because it shows you, because one of the things often on a side tangent that I had went on is that one of the funny things about Japan is that them being an island nation, they don't have a lot of things outside of that they can export. And this is one of the things that they're not really, like video games and anime cultural type items is one thing that they have that is a gold mine in their.
Yeah, the 90s see them in a huge boom for entertainment.
Yeah.
Obviously.
And they
before then, even then was a lot of electronics. And they've kind of fallen off on that, but they still are holding on entertainment.
And it's one of those things that it's like they keep testing the waters, like they're not really sure, because I'm sure that the anime bubble kind of hurt them, and they're getting to the point where they're actually okay, maybe this is okay. And they're probably not going to make the same mistakes. They'll make different mistakes, but they won't make the same mistake twice. They're very, very cautious about that kind of stuff. And this is one of those things that I'm glad that they're getting to the point where they're being full on brave about this, and they're getting very serious about, hey, this is a part of our audience. We need to take this audience very serious. And the more and more that we see this stuff, and the more and more money that's flowing through there, the better it is. That even if you feel like there's too many shows, okay, that's fine. That's why I pointed out the whole genre thing. Just focus on the genres that you're interested in. You don't have to watch every show. We do it because we like to do it. But you don't have to. Just watch the shows that you're interested in, and you won't never have a problem with the oversaturation point.
Yeah, anime right now is not good for completionists.
Yeah.
I have a very good friend, Wave Gaming, who just is all about watching everything, and he's on a regular basis complaining that he's behind on stuff like every 2 days. It's like, dude, just chill out a little bit. Take it easy. Don't burn yourself out. I don't think he'll ever burn himself out. It's kind of like me. I don't think I'll ever burn myself out on anime. But yeah, that's good stuff. Four Stick Man pretty much follows up with pretty much something I've already covered up with, which is why is more choices and variety a bad thing? And again, that hits heavily on the idea of, like you said, you don't have to watch everything. Because there's 45 shows a season does not mean you have to watch. I have a little bit of a pet peeve, and it's partly why I stopped watching certain people and their content. Is I really hate these people that will look through the seasonals when it's coming up. Like, they'll do a preview, and their video is just them complaining about, oh, this again. Oh, Mori Sekai. Oh, never heard that one before. Sarcasm. And it's like, then don't watch them. It's okay. It's not for you. Don't worry about it. Move on. That idea of going through a next season chart and saying, none of this stuff is for me. It's like, right. Exactly. It's not for you. It's for somebody else. It's not like I'm going to see, I don't know, some random kids show pop up on the anime chart and go, oh my gosh, I can't believe they're making a kids show that obviously looks like it's for babies. Because it's for them. It's not for me. I mean, I've had times where I've watched shows. I can't remember one here recently. I have watched shows where it was literally, obviously made for kids.
Well,
Kimono Friends.
Was it?
Kimono Friends was technically, I mean, yes, it got kind of dark and you kind of question it, but it's one of those ones where it's dark in a way that you don't know that it's dark, and it's probably for kids. It was all about discovery, all about adventure, all about Sugoi. The Sugoi thing was for kids. The kids go, oh, Sugoi.
The Mercstoria. Yeah, that one was kind of kiddish, and it did have a lot of we really liked it because it had some really cool ideas and a really great story that was going with it, but it was definitely felt like it was geared towards kids for sure.
Yeah, very simple storytelling, very simple dialogue. And I think that's the cool thing about things like Mercstoria and Kimono Friends, is having that concept that it's kind of like the family films that you have all over the place in America. The idea that the parents can watch it and get that subtle, grown-up humor that's in there that kids completely miss, and then later on when the kids grow up, they go, this ruined my childhood or something like that, or changed while I see my childhood or something. That stuff's always cool. So it's a little bit more harder to watch, obviously. Like, it was very hard sell for me to tell people to go watch Mercstoria, because it's like, yeah, there's some really cool, like the bird story was so cool and so well presented. And at the same time, it's like, but yeah, it technically does feel like you're watching, some kids show. So even though it kind of gets a little heavy at times, but again, that's one of those kind of hidden messages in there. But variety is definitely not a bad thing. So I definitely agree with you for Stick Man, which I'm assuming that's what you're insinuating is why I'd be bothered by that something. So
yeah, and that's kind of why I said, I don't really believe in the possibility of oversaturation. So
yeah,
I think it's theoretically possible, but I don't really believe it's really truly going to ever be that point.
Yeah. TCB says anime misconception pet peeves. Yeah, that's as other kind of stated, that's something we did here recently. To give you a nutshell, I think my biggest one is obviously that all anime is tentacle stuff. And so when you're talking to non-anime viewers and you're talking about how you enjoy anime, and they go, oh, you like that stuff. And it's like, no, it's not that stuff. Go watch Shogun Roku Raku Shinju. There's no tentacle stuff in there. There's so many great stories. And yes, I do delve in the stuff that's going to be stuff that I can't really say that I watch to them, but that's not to say that they're all that. And that's the misconception that I really, at this point, really hate.
And it's one of those two. There's two extremes. There's the, oh well, you're watching cartoons. No, yes and no. I mean,
yeah, and the child stuff.
And the child stuff. Yeah, it's either that or the other extreme of, well, tentacles. No, that's not it either. It's adult. It's shows that are technically targeted towards more mature adults, but it's not always that. I mean, some of it is Naruto, which I would not call a show for adults, but at the same time, it's not exactly for kids either. It's
super violent. Yeah, it's like older teens.
It's older teens, so it's enough that it's kind of cool, and at the same time, it's not so adult heavy themes that you're going, well, I definitely wouldn't let my kids watch this. There's a lot of that's the thing that I wish people could gather. It's a spectrum of a lot of different things in anime.
And that's the sucky thing, because like, it's whenever you're trying to explain that to somebody in the West that's not aware of it, it's like the only thing you can really point to is that, well, there's adult cartoons. There's South Park, there's Family Guy, there's all the other ones, King of the Hill. There's Western cartoons that are going for adults, but it's always sitcoms. So it's not like it's hard to really classify. That's the only example you have. In Japan, it's always a spectrum. There's such a huge audience for light novels and manga in Japan that they have sections for every single gender and every single age group. There's stuff for young women, there's stuff for older women, there's stuff for young men, there's stuff for older men. There's a huge, they cover everything. They're Hollywood essentially. And so when there is anime adaptations, obviously that's the same issue. There's a spectrum, and that's why, again, back to the saturation thing. But I think that's the biggest ones, is those two, obviously, just that it's all tentacles, it's all, yes, children, inappropriate things to children stuff. So it sucks, and it's like a stigma that I think has definitely come down quite a bit, but it's still there, obviously. So
yeah, it's for sure. I agree. It is definitely, the winds have shifted. I don't know when it happened, but it definitely seems to have shifted at some point in the last few years.
Yeah. Let's see here. Forsick Man says, what are some of your favorite anime that has never been licensed for whatever reason, never been available in either physical release or streaming legally? My top 5 in no particular order are, feel free to discuss them. Macross Frontier. I don't know if you put that, that must have been posted right. Yeah, I think that was posted right before. It may have been right before, maybe around the same time that they announced that they're actually going to be releasing it over here. So that's a there you go. Cool deal there. Princess Lover, Fortune Arterial, Chemico DX, and Yume Tsukai. I'm not familiar with any of those but Macross, unfortunately, but I'll have to look into them. Thankfully, a lot of mine that I've done, because I haven't done it in a while, but for a regular time, I was like sending out to like Everybody Discotheque, Nozomi Entertainment, Sentai. I was sending out to them all these are these titles that need to be rescued. Thankfully, a lot of them have been picked up, like Sound of the Sky, that first one from PA Works that I was chiming about for the longest time, True Tears. Technically, Scrap Princess, here recently, Zetsuba Sensei. So a lot of the ones that I've been calling out for them to pick up, they've thankfully have picked up. But there is still some, like Cheeky Angel. I still think that needs to be picked up. There's a couple of them that have been licensed before, but no longer are licensed. Things like Gura Gura. Not Gura Gura. That I think has not been released physically, I think. But the one that... Noichigu, Harai Noichigu. The forest was peaceful and then came Goo. That's a great comedy. And I don't know how it holds up to today's standards, but I still love it. It was, I think, Funimation for a while, but they dropped it like 10 years ago. Katana Gatari was done by NS America in these big, huge boxes, and they've since lost the license to that, and nobody's released it. That's the one that's by Nishio Oisin. So for fans of Monogatari series, same writer. It was a fantastic and beautifully animated series, and it needs another physical release, or at least somebody to stream it. So, and I think that one, Katana Gatari especially, I don't think it was ever streamed. We downloaded it. We were downloading it monthly because it ran for a year monthly. And unfortunately, I think the only thing it got was a physical release by NS America. So that really sucks. But yeah, everything else like Noichigu, Nishisho, Azumanga Daioh, all those shows that have been chiming for people to pick up have been picked up. Monster technically, but as we've mentioned several times before, Sean Kleckner specifically came out and said that I think he was trying to get it, but there's like issues behind it. There's some sort of ownership rights issue conflict that is in the background that makes it pretty much, as AZ says, pretty much impossible. So that's an unfortunate thing. I think Monster and Katana Gatari are the two big ones right now that I think really need to be saved. And Macross, but thankfully Macross is finally out of jail, so that one will get released here soon. I'm really happy about that. Anything else that you can think of besides Pupa?
No.
Besides Pupa?
No, that you named off all the ones that I couldn't think of, and that I would love to see those saved, especially Cheeky Angel. I would love to see Cheeky Angel. I would especially love it to see it get the retouch treatment. It so deserves it. It's such a great show. I think even
Nana here recently got picked up by somebody. So a lot of those older ones that are really classics, and technically Urusei Yatsura. They finally got the full series for that, so Discotheque, I think it is pretty much doing all of it.
Now, truth be told, I would much rather see a revamp than I would like to see a license rescue. I would take that any day over the week in that case. But most all of the ones that you had mentioned, I would love to see. I would really love to see a redo of Chobits. I mean, but Chobits is out there, and so it's not. It's kind of a side tangent.
They would have to have the same OP, like do a remaster of it or re-recording of it. But what would be the term there? Re-recording of it essentially. But yeah, that'd be great. Another one that popped in my head that I completely just lost. Oh yeah, I would love to somebody do a physical release of Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation. I still really want to know if they didn't pick up the physical or if they're just holding it. That would be great. Thanks. And don't censor it. Let's see here. Moving on, we have Salvezio. Salvezio says, what are your I will die on this hill takes for anime and manga? You can interpret it however you want. For example, tropes you love/hate, or shows that you love/hate despite the consensus, etc. Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation. I think that was really honestly the first time I felt that I had to like put down my foot. Was Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation. It was honestly, there is a small amount of fear there. Like, I think even Gigguk himself obviously faced it. Gigguk faced where he was so popular, obviously, that he did get that crowd, sniffed his channel, got in there, and started berating him, saying, oh, because you like this, you're okay with this. And I really felt, it was one of those moments where I'm like, I fear that. I fear that idea of coming out there and saying, I like this series, despite the fact that there's going to be people that will say, because you like this, you're okay with this. And obviously the argument against that is that you can watch there's so many shows that you can watch that people are perfectly fine with you watching, that you can say, well, that means you like this. Because you watched a war documentary, that means you like war, that you're okay with war, and that you're okay with people dying. It's like, no, it's not. If you're watching Attack on, I think that was the argument that he made. If you're watching Attack on Titan, does that mean you're okay with mass genocide that was happening in that show? I mean, come on, seriously.
Well,
it's and that was my thing there. It was like, I acknowledge that this is in it. I acknowledge that it's scummy, but there's a reason for it, and the writer himself even acknowledges it.
I think that I've gotten at some point kind of pinned into a hole on my whole basically localization purism. I don't know how I ended up getting to this point where I'm just so avid about being as pure to the original artist's intent. I was very, very lax on. Yeah, I understand that the whole idea of artistic interpretation of all that stuff, but I'm getting so almost. I feel backed into a corner where I'm getting
I think
intolerant.
That's the thing about this world today, is that there's this desire for people to push you into a corner, and you can't help but sit there and defend. And you can never get that moment where you go, but I'm okay with this. But no, you're too busy trying to go, no, stop. This is not what I like. That you can't at least take a moment to breathe and look in a different direction.
Yeah, it's one of those things where people have gotten, because we're being tolerant so much and saying, well, okay, it's just the one show, it's just one show, it's just one show, and it's like, now it's in my subtitles. I'm seeing garbage in my subtitles, and it's like, I know that's not what they said. You're shoving crap into my subtitles. My subtitles are there strictly so that I can get as close to the original show as I can. I don't need artist interpretation on my freaking subtitles. And that's the thing, is people think that they have this moral obligation to right the wrongs of the world, and I guess anime is a target of their righting the wrongs of the world.
I know when I read that in the subtitles, I immediately want to go start protesting.
It's stupid. I don't want to be so adamant about this.
Time to go rant about Gamergate the moment I see it in school prison.
I know this stuff is out of control, and I know that it seems like I'm going on and on and on about this, but you have to understand, I'm seeing this constantly, and I'm one voice in the wind, hoping that somebody hears my stupid rant. Yes, unfortunately, I guess this is the high hill that I'm going to die on, because I can't see any way out of it, because I'm into a corner and I can't get these people to lay off.
Yeah, and I think that's been the other thing. It was the whole aspect of the buyouts and stuff. We pretty much have, I don't want to say put a target in our head, but obviously breaking possible, partnerships and stuff like that in the future. I'm sure eventually it's gonna come to a point where I message somebody and they say, oh yeah, you guys talk too much about this, so we're not gonna work with you anymore. It's only a matter of time. I'm a certain company we work with. I won't mention names, but I'm waiting for the moment that it just comes crickets, because obviously we're not speaking positively on certain buyouts, and that's probably gonna shake. But again, if that's what, I'm not going to not speak on something that I'm passionate about and I'm fearful about just because I want to keep I don't think that that's right to anybody that listens to us and supports us for me to go, I won't talk about this subject because I'm afraid of ruining a partnership with such and such company, because I think that's wrong. I think the moment that you guys start seeing us sway away from talking about certain shows, or sway away from talking about certain subjects regarding the business practices of certain companies, that's the moment I think a lot of people are going to shut us off, because nobody wants somebody that's that disingenuous. But yeah, I think in regards to tropes and stuff, so Fujoshis and Derpy Faces. Fujoshi, like everything else, I'm fine with. Like I've had a time where I was a little bit frustrated with archetypes and tropes in like harem shows, but I've kind of gotten over that. I'm fine with them now. But yeah, the Fujoshi character that just drools and puffs out their nose and freaks out about two guys being too close to each other, or two girls being too close to each other, and just sit there and huffs and puffs for hours on end. That's literally their character. which typically with Fujoshi characters, that's literally all their character
Well, there is some otakus that do that too. So
yeah, even that I don't really care too much for. But it's
usually the quote unquote lolicon. So
yeah, typically, yeah. There was that in Zetsubou Sensei. I was like, whoa, wow, I forgot about that scene. It's got like this chubby looking otaku obvious character in this alleyway with this girl, and I'm like, oh crap, they totally did that. Again, they didn't really have any filters back then. But no, it's the derpy faces I can't. Like even this recent episode of Separate Time Rendering, it's like they did the derpy faces again. I'm like, oh god, please. It ruins it. Like it completely ruined the seriousness of that scene. It wasn't doing derpy for like Kakagururi, where it's all like, they got like they're overly excited faces and they're super genius. This was like just straight twisted and anger, and I was like, oh gosh, it looks so terrible. Like suddenly your art style changes. No, and I just watched Kakagururi Twins, and I'm like, no, it's never gonna work for me.
Those two never really bothered me. However, on my side, I've never cared. I used to have a bigger problem with Genkis, and I've since kind of more mellowed out on that
because they make you happy now.
They make me happy now. But
to think that Chris ever did not like Genki is crazy to think.
Now, for sure, time loops or things messing with time bug the crap out of me generally. I usually get really bent out of shape over time stuff because I have a tendency to try too hard to work things out in my head. And when they start messing with time, it really bugs the crap out of me because they're never consistent about how they handle time. So,
and you're gonna die on a hill for that one?
I don't know that I'd necessarily die on a hill on that because there is shows that I have watched that have done time and it's not bugged me as much. So I'm gonna just leave that out there as something that kind of irks me here and there and be done with it. The other thing is
oh, the cutesy girls that suddenly have been revealed to be psychopaths. Yes,
that one is something that does bug the crap out of me. I don't think, and I think that's a genuine, just a hard, and I wish that people wouldn't try to write it. Is really my thing. Is you cannot put your mind you can't put yourself in the mind of a psychopath because you can't think in the way a psychopath does. And so I think it's an inherent trap of people want to use a psychopath to write, but the problem is you can't understand a psychopath. And so therefore...
Psychopath too, but I was more going the extreme, but it's cases like there's a certain character class from the Elite where she's like super bubbly, cutesy, and then the moment that he kind of figures her out, she's like, if you tell anybody, I'm gonna blackmail you for this. You're never gonna tell anybody what you just seen here. And it's like, oh gosh, it just ruined that character completely for me. Whatever, sure, it makes sense, but at the same time, I don't like it because it completely ruins a character. The moment they turn that route, it's like, okay, I like this character. It's my favorite character. Now suddenly, it's pretty much the idea of somebody being a lie, and the moment you realize they're a lie, you no longer like them. So it makes sense, but at the same time, it's just it's such a cheap thing. It just feels very cheap in the end. Like, oh yeah, well, there you go.
Well, in my case, I try really hard to empathize with characters in a lot of cases and try to understand why they're making the decisions that they make. And then when a character flips a switch, she wasn't so bad for me. I could see the idea of a character who just literally is so frustrated with another character that their mask slips per se, whatever. But that she's not perfect by any means. I don't think she's the paragon of all character writing.
I just think it would be a lot better if the case was that obviously she does that persona in order to get what she wants, but at the same time, it's like just have it be a simple case where she's in the middle. Like her normal personality is not bubbly, but it's not like super mean.
Yeah,
and what they turn it to where she's constantly going back and forth between being super mean and super Genki, and it's like just have her be normal. And then this is her facade where she's Genki, but then this one time she just got frustrated. And she let that slip. It doesn't mean that she has to be one or the other. Why not be in the middle? Why does it have to be so extremes? I guess the problem.
The whole what really kind of set me off on that one was like you were saying, the turnaround and if you tell anybody about this, I'm gonna kill
the chest thing, which is like, okay, yeah, sure, whatever. That would never work.
This is stupid. Because that's not. Yeah,
there's another one. The whole I just took a picture of you grabbing me or whatever, and I'm going to use this against you. So now you have to do everything I tell you to do 24/7 for the rest of your life. It's like, please, come on. They did that with Couple Cuckoos at the very beginning. I'm like, instantly, I don't like this character. Like instantly, that moment, I don't like that because it's. Anyways, tangent. Go on.
But anyway, I don't care for psycho characters for that reason. I have a really hard time with empathizing and trying to understand a mindset of somebody who's technically a psychopath. And so when I can understand what they're thinking and then not understand, okay, that doesn't make sense. There's no logical sense to this decision. And so I have a hard time with them. And I tend to overly exaggerate that on the rest of the show. And so I don't like them being in a show mostly for that reason.
Yeah, I mean, that's the case with that one, seriously, is that every time I see a positive character in that show now, I'm constantly going, okay, I don't want to trust that this is how they are, because they're obviously probably going to at some point do that. Like the Naoto Toyama character in Classroom Elite, I don't remember what her name is. I'm just waiting for the moment that she does the same thing. Like I'm waiting for her to reveal her true side, and she's actually a psychopath. But yeah.
And then my last one is an absolutely silly one. I'm not going to die on this hill, is I hate haircutters. I hate when a girl gets up there for some weird, stupid life change moment. She cuts her beautiful flowing locks. I hate it.
I thought I heard him get like super angry this last week on a certain show. Got super angry because she cut her hair to sell it. Won't say the name of the show. Don't want to spoil it. Anyways, which really sucks because that's like a huge trope in anime is cutting hair for symbolisms. It's like a thing in Japan. It's like it's a symbolism of moving him on or letting something go or mourning something.
By the way, a certain character in Mushoku Tensei ticked me off.
Demon Spawn 0809 says, is there a way to, or if I could possibly for you to, upload audio from your YouTube impressions series onto the podcast, or even separate YouTube audio podcasts? I thought about this, and I keep debating this on a regular basis. It's kind of one of those things where the YouTube is to get funding to keep doing this stuff, so it kind of defeats the purpose of trying to create content there that people go to exclusively there just to get us ad revenues and whatnot there. The other issue is that sometimes there could be visuals on it that doesn't really work necessarily for audio podcast purposes. And the last reason is that would be a lot of content that would flood the podcast channel, and thus not everybody wants to listen to all that stuff. Now, we do have other people like Otaku Trucker who would probably love it, but he'd probably get sick of me really quickly. Giving Otaku Trucker two videos or two audios of videos a day, and then our podcast weekly would probably really work for him. I don't know. Maybe in the future we might make a separate podcast feed that will have that stuff. If I can get to a point where maybe both me and Chris can be full time on this, maybe he could take over that kind of stuff. But for now, it's just way too much work. And again, I want people to go to the YouTube channel. To give you an option, if you use Android, there's a ton of apps that will let you listen to YouTube videos, audio only. So if you're driving somewhere, you can listen to my videos that way. And that, again, should allow you to support the channel too, because you should get ads and stuff. Additionally, I think you have to pay premium for premium YouTube on the Apple side of things, and I think then it'll let you do audio only on iPhones and stuff. So there may be also other apps that allow you to do it on iPhone. I think they're usually blocked, but yeah, there's some options for you. But like I did it a lot when I was traveling a lot. I would just turn on a video and I would throw it down and listen to the audio. But yeah, we'll see though in the future. But for now, not yet. If anything. Hidden Weeb says, not sure if this is a question, but top anime OPs. It's something I've thought about for a bit, and I can throw on a few, but I don't think I can rank them, nor do I want to. Though in my example would be Bradio Flyers from Death Parade.
Great song.
Yes, definitely. Ashita o Narase, Kavka Shishido. To be fair, I'd leave my wife for this woman. Fairy Tail OP 22, Haraki no Yusha, Vondi from Osama Ranking, definitely an awesome one. Kanashi Ureshi Frederick from Koi to Uso, that was another good one. Scum's Wishing, I was thinking when I was reading that, Domestic Girlfriend, it's a great OP. I think it was there was many more, but just off the top of my head and just from my playlist, basically, if you had to make a playlist, what would it be on there? I guess is the question. Yeah, I think
we have an entire opening and ED.
It was like one of our first ones. Don't listen to it; it's terrible.
Well, no,
we need to do an update.
I was saying every season we put out a whole list of songs that we love every season, and it's hard to think back on stuff. I mean, I was glancing through it recently, and it's like there's ones like the ED from Dimension W, the OP from Dimension W, the
the OP for Dimension W was really good.
Yeah, Gangster or Gangsta, the OP for that one. There's all kinds of them.
I do have like most all my stuff on my actual playlist on my phone is pretty much Sawano Hiroyuki, but yeah, I got a lot of Feed the Fire, which I think was by Cold Rain. I think that one was Darwin's Game. I think it was OP.
Dark Meets Light from Finest Assassin. Love that one. There is a Fairy Tale one that I was really hot on, but it was a K-pop
the
song.
Second season, first one, I think it was. Was it? Wasn't the second Fairy Tale 2's OP the very first one? I think it was. That you
yeah,
were
it
really
was
hot
one
on?
that it was one after they had came back, and I was really hot on.
Yeah,
it.
when they changed studios. Rapture, the OP for Junie Tyson.
The Girls Frontline, the OP, I loved that one. But see,
Kiss of Death, which was the OP for Darling in the Franxx, that was really good.
That was fantastic. It's one of those things that a lot of them, when we do this, it's hard to remember stuff like Utawara Mono, which that one is timeless and it's really fantastic. When Snow White with the Red Hair came out, he remembered back to 12 Kingdoms. I really loved that one. The OP for that one, and
Chobits. So we just mentioned earlier.
Chobits is great. So it's the ones that are farther out. It's harder to remember because
Promised Neverland OP.
You got the new ones that are just really hot.
Yeah, maybe one of these days, because we technically have like all the OPs and EDs that we've pretty much used throughout our entire 10 plus years of podcasting. Would love to like go through it and just find like the best ones and make a video. Oh, the ED for It Invaded. I'm gonna stop looking at this.
Brunhilde and In the Darkness. The OP for that one was freaking beautiful.
No vocals, but it was really cool. It was definitely different. But no, it's like it would be a nice one to do. I would really have to hold myself back from doing a lot of them because. And I think even our music podcast, it was technically I think our first music podcast. We just did like a best OPs and EDs. I think that one was pretty long, so it would be fun to do another one. So I'll put that on the list of things that we can do going forward. And yes, technically almost on my ranking. Oh my gosh, that second OP was so good. It was so good. But thanks, Hidden Weeb. Truck-kun. Watch out for that Truck-kun. What do you think about watching shows on 1.5 speed or 2 times speed? Is that how you guys watch your shows?
No, technically not.
If we could, we would. No, High Dive and Netflix both have the ability to do that. High Dive actually goes up to 4 times speed. It's like, ugh. It's very difficult to read subtitles that fast. Like I can listen to somebody talking English that fast, but reading subtitles that fast, and technically it makes it very impossible for me to understand what they're vocally saying. Because yes, I can pick up a lot of lines in Japanese and know what they're saying without having to read what it says at the bottom. Too fast. Cannot do it. Cannot do it. But I have done that for a couple of shows on High Dive. Just 1.5 speed. I think any higher than that, it's too hard to get the emotion and context, because obviously if you have an impactful scene, the pauses after statements can mean a lot. And so when you're taking out a lot of those pauses, those dramatic beats, you're really ruining the feel of what's happening. So I really don't like doing it. I did do it a lot. We did do a lot with things like the original Gundam series because unless you watch it, unless you watch 1.5 speed, it doesn't feel normal. It's that slow pacing, and doing 1.5 speed makes it feel somewhat normal in pacing. So really older shows, it really helps out to make the show feel less old. But anything newer, it's very difficult for me to do that just because I think, again, it takes a lot of the feel and the context out of stuff. So
it is one of those that is really kind of complicated as an answer. Like Andrew was saying, it depends on the show. It really does.
Yeah, Bastard I watched in 1.5 speed, and I didn't think it ruined it because that show's not really going for like impactful drama beats. It's just a dumb old fantasy show with crazy action and a girl having to kiss what is supposed to be her little brother all the time just to make her powerful and then falling in love with him.
But me personally, I generally do not do that on shows at all. I won't do it because I'm afraid that I'm going to miss something. I'm not good at that kind of stuff. Now, informational podcasts, I'm constantly in
like
my
5 times
audiobooks.
speed.
I'm listening to my audiobooks at 3 times speed. I'm listening to podcasts and stuff like that at 2.5 to almost 3 times speed. I'm listening to I got a lot of information coming in very fast. Am I losing out on information? Probably, but at the same time, it's not really affecting me as much as when I'm watching a show. And I don't know why. Maybe it's just the effects that are going on the screen. I'm trying to catch what's going on the screen at the same time I'm reading the subtitles. So, yes, I like I said earlier, I'm getting better at picking up words that the general gist of what's being said, but at the same time, I'm technically not fluent in Japanese, period.
See here. Jalupe13, I hope that's how you pronounce that, or Jlupe23 or 13, sorry. Was curious, but have y'all had a chance to listen to the audiobook of Spice and Wolf yet? And if so, what do you think about the VA who's doing the English version? It's J. Michael Tatum, who did the English version of Lawrence, and more recently, Tenya from My Hero Academia. And the secondary question is it possible to start pulling the name of the intro songs and outro songs in the description? I did that for the longest time. I haven't done it recently, so it's a big negative for me. I'm just bad. I've done it in the past. I haven't done it recently, so I apologize. If you have a certain episode that you want to know about specifically, you can go ahead and message me and I'll find it for you. But no, the Spice and Wolf audiobook, I have not. I was really excited for it to come out because I think that's just one of those ones that would be really fantastic to have audiobook to listen to. Unfortunately, recently I have not really done much audiobooks because I haven't traveled at all like I used to. But I think once I finish Mushoku Tensei, I think I was debating. I think I wanted to go to Ascendance of Bookworm first, but I do want to go to Spice and Wolf, and to do the audiobook version of it would be really nice. So I might actually do that at that time. So.
I may. It depends.
That's cool. That's Lawrence though, because that's literally the whole book is his inner thoughts. So to get he did a decent job, if I remember correctly, from the original series. So that's actually really cool that they got his V. I think somebody told me that at some point. So
I personally am kind of steered away from Audible.
It's like a dub. Why would you like audiobook, Chris? It's like a dub.
It really, I mean, well, I'm not going to say it's different because it's not. I do still have a really hard time.
They're reading it. They're not interpreting. That's the thing there. They're not saying no cap.
Right?
The thing is, they're not having to be serious. When they translate, they're not trying to match lip flaps. And a lot of the issues they're trying to do with a lot of these dubs is match lip flaps. And yes, technically there's some times where they take quote unquote creative direction in making it have things in it that shouldn't be. We're not getting back in that discussion though.
When I still, I'm not going to say it's different per se. I am a lot more lenient on audiobooks because they're trying to personalize something, but they're not, like Andrew was saying, they're not making a creative interpretation. Then it's the localizers that are the problem, not necessarily the acting. The acting is still, to me, slightly cringeworthy, but at the same time...
Oh, use the cringe word.
Yes. At the same time, I'm not as angry about it, if you want to say that I'm angry, because I'm not technically angry. I'm just going, stop. I still give a lot more lenience because at the end of the day, my problem is not necessarily in a lot of cases with actors. I know that everybody seems to think that my issue is with dub actors. It's not. It never has been. My problem has always been with localizing. I'm glad that somebody finally put my finger on the localizing versus the translation, because I always said the translators. It's the localizing. The localizing is my problem. I want everybody to know that this is a big shock for everybody. I find actors, English voice actors, a little bit cringing. But when it comes down to it, I don't have a problem with them. I like voice actors. I think that they fill a very important role. They are the ones who their voices are helping people that watch English dubs enjoy the show.
Makes it more popular. It makes it accessible for people that can't read the text. Maybe you are dyslexic, you have some sort of disability that makes it difficult. Maybe you're just tired from a day's work and you don't want to read text on the screen. It opens the door up for a lot of people to be able to enjoy it. So
now,
I've never had a problem with it. It's just I don't watch it.
Now, if a actor is feeling too big for their britches and they're trying to impose some kind of ideal upon you, that's different. That's a different aspect. And I will pick out that particular actor as a problem. But when it comes down to it, the actors themselves they've done nothing wrong. It's the localizers, the ones who are trying to impose some kind of a creative idea into the show, which is an original artwork by somebody else in Japan who does not have the same cultural values as the person over here.
So, Arl Dennis says, so having finally listened to the full to last week's podcast, which would have been back in, was that June? I don't know. I decided to list out my first 10 anime as well, excluding stuff like Dragon Ball Z, Pokemon, and Digimon, which I had already seen on TV sporadically. I don't fully remember when I started watching anime exactly, but it's probably been around 12 years or so. So he has Death Note. That's a good one. That's a classic. I'm guessing this is an order that he actually watched them, or if he's just saying the first ones. Probably just saying the first ones. Death Note's a good starter. It's definitely a good starter. Very popular, very well received. Even to, I think people that are new to anime, it doesn't feel as anime-esque. I mean, even the worst thing you're going to get from it that's going to make somebody go, what is this Japanese cartoon thing or Chinese cartoon thing, is probably, what was her name, Misa? She's a little bit Japanesey with the whole idol feel of her, but other than that, it feels very Western in feel, which is one of the reasons why it was so shocking that they couldn't pull off a Western release of that, or Western adaptation of that.
It is. It's one of those that
it's very political. It's very mind gamey.
Yeah,
it's not tropey.
It's great as a show that it can break you into the idea of, hey, this is not just a normal cartoon, and at the same time, it's and at the same time, it's not so much crazy. I mean, like Andrew was saying, Misa is probably the craziest out of that. I mean, maybe the Death Gods, but not that bad. They're just kind of more goth. It's very goth. It feels very goth. Good to watch that kind of a show as a first.
And I think a lot of goths in the West loved it. I mean, that was why we had like literally every 2 weeks for a period of time there was some guy showing up at school with a Death Note. And it was usually a goth. It grabbed that audience a lot. The goths loved it. Really had that feel of goth, but
not saying why Chris likes it or nothing like that.
Yeah.
Wasn't my crowd, I'm sure.
High School of the Dead. That's definitely going to be the opposite spectrum of Death Note. But still edgy zombies though, and that's definitely a Western thing. They don't really do much zombie stuff in anime, which is kind of surprising.
I can see that as a show that a lot of I mean, I would have absolutely, if I had found it early on as one of my first, I would have eaten that show up. I mean, that it hits all those edgelord. I really, really love this kind of crazy guy ends up with a harem in the middle of the zombie apocalypse, and they're all just kick butt girls that are just tearing things
Dropping
up.
Gums on jugs. Gurren Lagann is the third one he has. Still haven't finished it.
I can't
Eventually.
comment on that one.
Eventually. Bleach, that's a good one. That was definitely one that was kind of in the same vein as a lot of the shonens. Watching that on television stuff, it was really good. So.
For sure. Bleach was I was so heavy into that scene for sure when it first came out.
Yeah, Darker Than Black, definitely a really good one. Didn't so much enjoy the second one, but the first one was really good. So definitely a huge fan of that one. I just love the aspect of the abilities and how they always had to do something in order to like replenish it. Basically, they had like this
quirk. What was it called? A quirk or a
It's like a payment thing. Like you like say a
tribute?
guy, yeah, like a tribute. Like he would do their ability, and then they would have to like this one person would have to eat something. Like right after they did it, or one person would have to clip their fingernails every time they use their ability. There was always something they had to do that was always weird. It was always these weird things that they would have to do, like pop their cheek or something like that. And they're like, or something like that. It's just some stupid thing that they would have to do if they use their ability. And
if they put it off, cool. It would become more and more exaggerated. Yeah. How hard they would have to do their quirk.
Yeah. Mao Yusha.
Love it. You are a man of culture by far.
Yeah, there you go. It has a really bad ending though, which is too much source material baiting at the end. But other than that, it was really good. It was basically Spice and Wolf at the time. We were talking about how it was very similar to Spice and Wolf. So, or no, at the time I think we watched Mao before we watched Spice and Wolf, didn't we? Or at least watched it again. I think I watched Spice and Wolf once. No. I'll have to check my review. If my review has me talking to death about how it's Spice and Wolf, I think it was probably after Spice and Wolf, but very much similar. So if you like Spice and Wolf, definitely check that one out. Mirai Nikki. I've always been mixed on it. I think it's fine, but I definitely was not in the fandom wave when that first hit. So that's definitely not my realm.
I came to that one a little bit later, and I definitely can see that it's one of those that are just
everybody puts it on their yandere list. You have to watch it.
Yeah, you almost have to just to understand who Gasai is, and it's one of those that at the end of it, I walked away going, "Wow, that kind of is cool that they did that," and a really interesting twist, and I thought it was really kind of cool. But you have to sit through 24 episodes to get to that twist. But
yeah, it's like it's that Deus Ex Machina thing at the very end. What they do, literally. Princess Lover. Not sure what that one is. No.
I have a feeling I know what that is, and I'm gonna leave it.
Okay, Steins Gate. That's another classic one. I think again another one that. I don't know. I can't say this is in the same realm as something like Death Note, which is like more acceptable West. But I think if you get past the very geeky nature of it, I think a lot of computer geeks and stuff will probably enjoy it. But it does definitely ramp up the Japanese geek thing, which might be a little bit of struggle for a lot of people. But I think it's one of those ones where if you can get past that beginning part, it gets good at 12 argument. It definitely takes off at that point. It was so funny because I think I got in an argument with somebody here recently about that. I was like, I remember everybody when I first watched that show, everybody acknowledged that first core was a drag. It's all about it gets good at the second core. And yes, it does. It gets really good. But it was very difficult for me to get through that first core for the longest time. So
I'm on this one. I was a little bit different on that. I really loved the first part. I had a hard time getting through the problem area.
The death montage?
The death montage. I had a really hard time because it's a character I really, really like. And so I had a really rough time with that section. And yeah, but I did come away really, really loving it for sure.
Helsing. Helsing was a classic back in the day. I loved Helsing. Was it Helsing and something? What was the other one? Vampire Hunter D.
Oh.
Helsing, Blood Plus. It was like a whole bunch of like really crazy ones back in the day that I really loved. So, and I'm probably talking about them being all in different time periods, but I watched them mostly all at the same time. So, yeah. I forgot. I forgot I watched Helsing in before I started watching One Piece. So he must have had One Piece there at some point, and then he put Helsing. So that's a good thing. I didn't. That's right. I haven't seen Dennis talk about One Piece. Dennis is one of those people. Can't talk to Dennis anymore. He's a One Piecer. I'm joking. Havoc says, "What year do you believe that anime as a medium really hit the mainstream? Also, what anime brought the medium to the forefront of the mainstream. We just literally hit on this a little bit. It's almost as if Havoc knew this was going to come up.
I wonder, because I mentioned that that at some point the winds seem to have shifted on anime. I wonder if it was the pandemic, because a lot of people were stuck at home, and then suddenly they're watching a lot of these shows, and then they run out of all their shows, and they were like, well, there's that anime stuff that everybody's been talking. Something
technically
changed.
Crunchyroll hit their milestones, unless they've released here recently another sub count, but they hit a milestone and then was bought up by Sony before the whole thing hit. So I know that the whole idea of Sony realizing that it's something that should be invested in and them jumping into the forefront of that was before then. So I don't know. I would say the whole mainstream aspect was before then, and I would honestly say that I wouldn't disagree if somebody said it was probably Netflix. As much as we hate and we rip on Netflix a lot, there is something to be said about a platform that has several 100,000 million people sub to it, and somebody finally, it pops up on their main screen, Violet Evergarden, and they click on it and they watch it and they go, oh, what's this anime thing? And then they look into more, and then they find Crunchyroll or some other questionable platform to read or to watch more of it, and it creates that fandom. I don't know. I really do think that it was becoming more mainstream probably back, I don't know, in early 2010s. Like that, I think that point in which you really did start seeing Crunchyroll pick up, because obviously Crunchyroll became what it is because they seen a success in it. And that success was garnering them a lot of attention. It was garnering them a lot of views, which then pushed them into picking up a lot of items. But I think going into that middle area, like 2015-ish, I think that's where I started really feeling like there's a lot of content that's coming. There's a lot of content that's getting localized. There's a lot of content that's being picked up. And I don't necessarily see the usual statements by the public and by news and stuff that's covering the fervor of anime being as negative as it used to be. It used to be a very negative connotation back in the 90s and the early 2000s to be an anime fan. And now you don't necessarily see it so much. Granted, I'm not as in the public square as I used to be in the general public square. But like even in, social media and stuff, I don't see it as much. But I don't know. It's hard to really judge, but you can't really deny the fact that if Sony was willing to buy Crunchyroll for as much as they paid for it, somebody with a lot of money knew that there was money in it. And again, I think that is a sign. And granted, it was a thing in Japan as well. There was a lot of studios that were claiming that they were liking the idea that even before they even started producing something, they were making boatloads of money just selling a streaming license and passing that over. They were making money before it even started airing. And that's a huge plus for them. And it's probably, yes, I've stated before that's streaming is like a portion, like a part of what these studios and the production committees are making. Production committees are more focused on stage plays, CDs, merchandise, but there's still an aspect of some money from that they do like. And I think that's only fueled by the fact that there's so much of it, and so much of it's coming over to the West. And we're not seeing some season where they're only going to pick up 5 shows. There's obviously a fandom for it. It's obviously a lucrative business. And I think that, again, that's kind of been... I guess I can't really necessarily say when, but I can say that there's a positive sign when you see how much of a growth we've seen, especially in the streaming sphere. And again, how much of it was licensed and how very little of it wasn't licensed. The fact that very little of it wasn't licensed is a really prime sign that people are consuming it. So again, it goes back to that previous discussion about saturation. Again, if there was a saturation point, we would probably see Crunchyroll not picking up as much as they pick up. And I guess technically, a lot of it's really good. A lot of it's really good. But yeah, very hard one to answer. But I don't know. Maybe one of these days it would be fun to sit down and really try to see if I can figure out. Again, it'd be very difficult to say when, but I think you can see the signs. You can see the signs of its build up. And I think at least looking at those signs would be an interesting thing to really dig into. So Nomad of the Fence says, do you listen to any non-Japanese music? What are your opinions on Elon Musk? What were you into whenever you were when you were in your cringy phase when you were younger, if you had one? Part of that's loaded. Elon Musk is fine. I don't really have an opinion one way or the other. He made an electronic car and he shot a rocket to the moon. And he hasn't gone to the moon yet, has he? He just went into orbit.
No,
he made a car.
He shot a Tesla into the sky.
He went, yeah, he put a Tesla.
Was it a
his
Tesla
rocket's
or
really
one of
insane. His team is really amazing. I guess that's a better way of putting it because obviously Elon himself did not do it. But those rockets coming back down was pretty insane to see. Like them landing was like, what? What? Reusable rockets is insane. Blows my mind. But again, that's his team. But what non-Japanese music? Mainly lo-fi beats. I listen to lo-fi beats a lot. I used to listen to a lot of classical music back when I was younger. I don't listen to it as much. Every now and then I'll listen to like Yo-Yo Ma or something like that. I really loved his music. But mostly lo-fi. I done some, was it techno swing or something like that? I forget what exactly it's called. But nothing like Western. Like I don't know, at my young age, I got burnt out on country music because we had lived with somebody that was obsessed with country music. I got sick of pretty much pop and everything like that, so I just, all I listen to anymore is just Japanese music, lo-fi beats, or trance, sometimes trance, so. Yeah, I was really into DJ Tiesto for the longest time.
I don't care for trance, but I went in the dubstep direction, so I got my electronic music either way. But no, I prefer I guess contemporary instrumental, kind of the jazzy type stuff. I really, really love that stuff.
What was it, Lindsey Sterling?
Lindsey Sterling, I love Lindsey Sterling.
Really good.
I do like a lot of classical stuff. I prefer my actual preferred genre would probably be hard rock, heavy metal. I don't quite go down the death metal route. I think that's a bit too hard for
about as me. Far as I've gotten was things like Evanescence and stuff.
Yeah. But even then, that's in my listening.
I had an Evanescence and Nickelback phase at some point.
Do I listen to it now? Not really. I tend to steer more towards J-pop, but those are my preferred. If you were to corner me and say, listen to a,
you guys can corner it again.
Yeah, if you're gonna corner me and say listen to music right now and it can't be J-pop, I'll probably listen to those particular type genres. But when it comes down to it, I have my TV set to play contemporary instrumental. I do love hearing that jazzy here and there as a kind of a ambient noise. I'm not big on the lo-fi. I just the constant thing gets annoying to me. There's this,
but he's okay with
yes, I love that.
It's not good.
Well, I'm not going to sleep with dubstep, that's for sure.
It's like, drop the beat. Wait, what's going on? The moment he hears the drop the beat part, he's got to wake up. Turn it down. I was wondering where that rumbling noise is all night. Got so loud, his car's like paneling's clanking. That's like everybody around here is like, it's either that or they have a speaker on the outside of their window that's doing the treble. But no, what was your cringiest thing ever? Are you still answering that question?
Cringe.
The cringiest phase let's just put it the way, the cringiest thing you've ever done when you were younger, like a phase that you had, something you were into that was cringy. I mean, we used to dance around. We used to like not dance, but fight around in the yard with like Ninja Turtle stuff.
Ninja Turtles stuff.
We were really big in Ninja
Thinking of it now, it's probably a bit more cringe than you realize when you're a kid. But that was the coolest thing. I mean, writing. We were into the Terminators for a little while, so we'd type up stupid, goofy programs on my computer or my basically. old DOS game.
I was talking to somebody the other day about that's my stylist. I was talking to I think they're called stylists. The person that did my hair. I was talking to them the other day about like video camcorders and stuff back in the day, and remembering how like we had one with like a VHS. Yeah, VHS. We had a VHS recorder, and at some point we got it out of our parents' hand. I think they bought it for a vacation that we went on, which that's a whole cringy story in itself. But yeah, we got a hold of it, and so we're recording all these stupid things, and eventually we realize if you record for like a second then stop, then you can move something and you could do it again. I think it was like, I don't know if Wallace and Gromit was back in the day, like those times. I mean, you've seen like a lot of the old Godzilla stuff was done with that stop motion stuff. And yeah, so we figured out, yeah, you record for like a split second, turn it on, record, turn it off, move something, turn on, turn it off. And then here's the cringy part. That's not the cringy part. So we're making these little, I think we used our, what was it, the Guardian?
You're going to bring it up, aren't you?
What was the Guardian game that we played? It was like this Dungeon and Dragon thing that Chris had at some point that we used to play a bunch of. So we had like all these little orcs and stuff. We'd move around. They would fight each other, and they would enter rooms, and people would fight them, and it was really dumb. And then every now and then you need something like to be moving like through the air. So we would just record a couple seconds of a character being swung on a string to hit another guy. But no, this here's the cringy part.
I know where he's going.
At some point, we listened to it. And of course, it has the audio being recorded at the same time. So you would hear somebody say something for like a brief second. And so what does that turn into? Every time we would do stop motion after that, we would keep making random stupid sounds like or and it would be giggling noises half the time. Somebody's talking. It was just the stupidest stuff, and we'd laugh about it. It was dumb.
Oh, I thought that you were going to talk about us putting somehow dubbing. I don't remember even how we did that. We dubbed "Can You Feel the Love Tonight" or something over on one of them.
Yes, we did. We did the Lion King thing. Yeah. That was some cringy times. And it was so stupid. Like one of the things that we got such a stupid kick out of was how like if you had it hooked up to your television and you looked at the television with the camcorder, it did that whole crazy, amusement park visual effect with it basically mirroring to itself endlessly. So you'd sit there and just look at that for like literally an hour. Dumb kids back in the day. We didn't have iPads. Shut up.
Well, I thought, I mean, that is kind of good. I thought
kids these days don't know what you had to do to get them.
Yeah, you have the internet.
You have the internet now.
I was big into a lot of stuff to the point where it was almost cringy. I mean,
remember when we collected pencils? Like we bought these stupid colored not colored pencils, but pencils that had these cool designs on them.
Well,
from the stupid coin machine, and we would put it in this stupid little rack that would go on the window.
We had this thing when I was a kid that for whatever reason somebody thought it was a cool idea to do eraser burns on your arm, and me desperately trying to fit in with this.
I still actually have the marks.
I still do
hands.
have the marks. Yeah, a little bit.
Like literally 20 years ago.
And then the smiley faces from the cigarette lighters did that for a while.
What? Oh man,
we were weird. I mean, this is what we're talking about. I guess Tide Pod is bad, but kids have been doing stupid crap all through life. I mean,
the news broadcast talking about Tide Pods, and we had racer burns.
I remember kids doing huffing and stuff like that. It's like people did stupid crap when we were kids.
We were doing the whole tattoos with pencils, and there was a big concern about lead poisoning, and then we had to realize that pencils didn't necessarily have lead.
They had graphite.
Not necessarily lead, but it's still like a concern there that you're putting something. I mean, that's the whole joke that is about like these overly safeness of children these days. Like we used to just like get out there. I mean, barefoot on blacktop, running around and skinning up our toes. Like, oh, bad. The skinning of our toes was so bad sometimes, and just doing the stupidest things. And we were out there just doing stuff. And so again, that's how we have the immune systems that we have, is we do these stupid things, run around just sharing stuff, and we shouldn't be sharing. Not needles, but yeah.
But yeah, that's getting away from the cringe hobbies. Like I was gonna say is, I think that it was more along the lines of it wasn't necessarily that the hobby was cringe, but more the amount that I got into it would be cringe. Like. We were heavy into Pogs. I was heavy into Magic the Gathering. I was heavy into BattleTech when I got into it. And I would just go, when I would go into something, I tend to go overboard and hog wild into it. And yeah, so I tended to be a bit cringy in a lot of those cases.
Yeah. Good stuff. And yeah, the usual acting out your favorite movies and stuff was always fun. But anyways, that's enough walk down cringy memory lane. We'll do some more again another time. King Aaron says, do you think Japan will eventually start making more anime for streaming services than TV, like how the West transitioned? Now most of the best content is on streaming, and you're not as restricted by what you can show if it doesn't air on TV.
I think that's what we're doing right now.
It's eventuality. It's always technically. I hate when people say this because it jumps in my head because I hear it so much. Japan is in some ways a little bit further behind than, say, the United States. They're not as inclined to jump onto new media. It's not a bad thing, and I think a lot of people coin that in a way that it sounds like a bad thing. Japan still uses fax machines. Yeah, whatever. You've never been in a business. Every company I've ever been in has a fax machine. It's not like Japan's special.
My work has a fax machine.
Everybody has a fax machine. There's just some people that do not want to move on from fax machines. So companies, if they're selling or distributing or whatever, they have to have it. But the point there is that they're not as inclined to jump to streaming only. Because you're specifically saying exclusively, I think. Right now, what they're doing right now is, for a lot of cases, they're doing both. They're doing TV and streaming platforms. Now, I don't know how saturated that is. I think there's still quite a bit in the Japanese side of things that's not being... That's like I was mentioned earlier. Most of them are probably watching anime on television because I don't think that everything that is broadcast is on television or on streaming services. Why that's the case is because companies from what I understand, this is not confirmed. I have not looked into it enough to know for sure. It does seem like there is a consensus that a lot of these TV broadcasting companies that have control over these properties, the majority of the control over the ownership of it, do not want it on streaming platforms. They want to keep television live. They are literally what we were probably a good 5 years ago, where you had companies like Disney and stuff did not want to have anything to do with streaming. They were trying to keep people on these broadcasting packages with cable television. Only here recently we're seeing things like Disney, AMC, all these companies are all getting their own streaming services and pulling and literally killed Netflix. Let's be honest. All these companies literally said, wait, Netflix, we want to do that now because you're making a lot of money. So they all pull all their catalogs out of Netflix because they want to do their own streaming service. And Japan is nowhere near that moment yet. And I don't know how exactly they would when it comes to anime, because anime is so broad in who it owns, unless maybe TV Tokyo or somebody wants to start that ball. Until a lot of those, and maybe TV Tokyo has a streaming service. I'm not sure. I have to look into that. Until these broadcasting services want to do that,
does.
They can't. They're not going to really do that yet.
ATX has a streaming service.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, I think that I do think that when I say it's happening now, is literally that moment everything is shifting right now. And the funny thing is, and that's why interestingly enough, me bringing up ATX is one of those confirmations of it. I literally went on to ATX's website and actually glanced down their page and had the entire page. Their streaming service is like $20 a month. It's interesting to consider how, like I said before in one of our past podcasts, I like to watch a lot of the things from the big picture standpoint of understanding where things are shifting. And I do believe that right now, Japan is going through that shift phase that we've technically, like Andrew was saying, we've already technically went through, where the vast majority of people cut the cord. Now, the only reason the cable companies are surviving right now is literally from the last remaining, the old fogies who just won't let go of their cable box. They just love to have their show. And yes, that's the way the old fogies say it, is they want to watch their show. So they those
It's a
last
force of habit, and I think that's a lot of cases that we've experienced, even with our family. Is like this. It's just that desire for things like local news and stuff like that, and it's like you can get that from just like some bunny ears. You don't have to have, and with how expensive it's getting, it's like just stop, just cut that cable. And I think there's some people that love the security of just turning on and whatever's there. They don't want to choose. It's like it's scary that there's people that don't want to have to choose. They say choose when they go through the guide or whatever, but they're essentially wanting to whatever is available, and they just have to be forced to select something rather than going through like the Netflix catalog. The whole joke about scrolling through a Netflix catalog is necessarily 50% of the time people spend on Netflix. It's that idea that I just want to be forced to watch something, and I don't want to have to worry about thinking about what I want to watch. It's like, no, watch what you want to watch.
Now, I will give a lot of pause to one aspect about this more than anything. One of the things that I have mentioned at some point, I threw out this idea, and Andrew was I want to say that we debated on the idea of kind of this force feeding shows. So basically you would go on to Hulu, or I got the idea from Hulu, but I know that I want to say Retro Anime has this kind of setup. Retro Crush has this setup where basically you can go into a force-fed the shows. So they have almost a scheduling of just random shows that they want to put into their feed. I think that there is still a kind of market for that per se. It's not exactly the way that that people, because a lot of stuff like Netflix kind of changed the game no matter what, and this is something to consider. In the future of anime, yes, I see things are shifting right now, and Japan is getting ready to get on board with the full-on everything's going to be streamed. Yes, there's going to be, like I said, the old fogies are never going to let go of their cable box. But everybody else is pretty much on the internet. Netflix changed the game in the full dump thing. I think that's going to be something that's going to happen in the future. Because if an anime studio is not bound to the weekly schedule, I think full dumps are pretty much where the future is going to be. There's no real reason to have a show be piecemealed a la carte if you can just dump everything out. However, I think there is something for that type of just go and click on and let the background ambience show happen, and finding shows that way. I think there is a market for that. You don't necessarily have to have does that make sense? You don't necessarily have to have a continual feed of this show kind of matches this show, so you'll probably like it. I don't think that everybody wants that kind of thing. Yes, it is good to find shows that way, but I like to have an ambient show and find something new that I wouldn't have considered looking at some point.
I think it would be a really cool idea, and this, if for some reason Crunchyroll is listening to this and I have not sent me a hate message yet, to have essentially, if you are on the app or if you're in the browser, you can have a toggle that you can opt into that says Discover Mode. And what that does is once you finish your episode that you're currently watching, it just randomly chooses, yes, maybe something that's in the same ballpark that most people watched after watching that, but something that's in the same genre or something like that, and just throws on the first episode. And it stays in this sort of discovery mode and keeps jumping to different shows' first episodes until you finally stop it. That would be a really cool, or you select keep watching the show or something like that. I think that would be a really cool idea. Because I think that's one of the problems that, honestly, especially something like Crunchyroll, it has a catalog that it has, is that there's so much stuff in the background that's just completely forgotten about. And yes, a lot of it drops off their list, and you never know that it completely dropped off their website that people are missing out on. And granted, that's what we're here for. But for those that don't listen to us, it'd be really cool discoverability. Have a discoverability mode that just once you finish your episode, if you opt into this, it just keeps showing you the first episodes of random shows until you tell it to continue or to stop. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
You might discover something you haven't watched yet. See here, 92 Mike says, can anyone tell me what anime radio stations are good choice to listen to music? The only one I have is the one I used to listen to, which was Quiet Radio. I don't even know if they're still around. If Quiet Radio is even still around. Other than that, I just usually go on to like Spotify and just search for anime music. Is really all I do. I don't have like a station I listen to or anything. So,
I think I'm doing Listen Moe, but I haven't tried it in a while. But yeah, Kawaii. Kawaii is gone. I was listening to Otaku Hardcore or something, hardcore anime or something for a while, and that's gone now.
We set up a radio station server at some point. I remember we did that at some point.
I would really love to do that, but the problem is the royalty fees. I want to do it legally. I don't want to get in trouble for that kind of crap, and they will come down hard, and I don't want to play that game.
Yeah, that would be really cool. And just have like little insert radio talk points. That'd be cool. But yeah. See here. Bacon Chips says, what are some unpopular manga that you like? For me, I have a decent amount, and I feel like that should get attention. My Wife Has No Emotions. I hear a ton of people talk about that. Don't act like it's not popular. Unless it's just you that keeps talking about it. I'm not sure. A story about a dude who marries his android robot, so Chobits. Really good slice of life, comedic romance, and plenty of cute moments. Next one he has is A Man and His Cat. Story pretty obvious. It's about a man who adopts a cat, but man, this manga has made me teared up multiple times. Undead Unlock, turning into one of my favorite shonens. Really hoping this gets an anime adaptation. Story is tough to explain, but girl has unlock powers and meets an undead dude, and shonen shenanigans happen. Don't really want to spoil much, but it's super good. But yeah, I've heard a couple people, maybe again, it might be you over and over again, talking about My Wife Has No Emotions. I know that I think Weeb Gaming was talking about us too, I believe. So I might give that one a shot here soon. But yeah, I don't know. I think the only ones that I think that I've read that I don't believe are too popular is like, I don't hear enough people talk about Knights of Sidonia, and I really, really liked it. Even though it got a full release over here, so I'm assuming it did well. I don't know if School Live did all that well, but I really enjoyed that manga. Other than that, I think most of my other stuff are pretty mainstream, like the guy that does all the Flowers of Evil and stuff like that, and Happiness. I read all of his stuff and enjoy it. I think the only other one that I have that is kind of obscure is probably Maria the Virgin Witch, which wasn't really all that hugely popular at the time. So I think Noragami should be more popular than it is. I think it does have a fandom, but it needs to be more popular than it is. I haven't really read anything that's really obscure. I mean, like Dead Tube was pretty obscure, but it's pretty edgelordish. Like, it's just violent for the sake of being violent. Bunch of kids that have to like do horrific things and record it to get points or whatever. So yeah. Anything obscure on your end?
Mine go into the questionable areas. So probably my favorite that was probably really off of the beaten path that nobody probably has ever even heard of is probably No Bra. But that one it's not really a bad one. It's just it's a gender bender that nobody I've never heard anybody talk about it, and I really enjoyed it. But yeah, there's a whole bunch of them that are just goofy one-shots or something like that.
Forsic Man says, now that you've played the visual novel, what are your general thoughts of the Clannad visual novel compared to the anime? I've only done like 1.5 arcs, so I don't know. And that's the unfortunate thing, because I essentially, for those that aren't aware, I Twitch streamed Clannad because I figured, okay, I'm going to go through it. And then I completely failed miserably because I stopped doing it. it's just one of those things where I kind of want to do it with people watching, but at the same time, not getting enough viewership. It's like, I don't know that I necessarily want to set up everything just for low viewership. But it was one of those ones where I technically wanted to go, I wanted to do Tomoya's arc. Obviously, she's best girl. And every guide said that you had to do the dorm lady first, because it like prefaces a lot of information for the other characters. And so I did the dorm lady first. Then I went to go do Tomoya's story. Really was enjoying it. So I haven't really done... And the dorm lady's story was dumb. Like, I'm sorry. I'll be perfectly honest. Wasn't that great. It wasn't that great. It was very simple. It was very... it progressed very quickly. I'll just say that. Like, suddenly, hey, we're in love. But I was enjoying the little extra tidbits of each character. And that's what I was assuming I was going to get into. Obviously, as you're playing through it, you're playing the same route. You're just kind of bridging. You're taking these different branches, and you're deciding if you want to go into this room or not. When you hear somebody in there, you can choose if you want to hear. You can choose if you want to hear a story or not. I like that it lets you skip if you've already heard a story, so that you can continue on as you're going through another loop. It's not necessarily a loop. It's just you're starting from the beginning again. So I was enjoying it. That's what I was expecting from that versus the anime. It's obvious that the visual novel is always going to be far more superior than the anime, because the anime is not going to want to adapt every single encounter. It would be very jarring. I've always enjoyed the anime for what it was, which was in the midst of so many dating sim visual novel adaptations that were happening at the time. It had a main character that was really fantastic, and they did a great job of portraying that. So I always love the anime for what it is. But yes, obviously, the visual novel is going to be much more impactful, because you have a lot more context. You have a lot more scenes to develop characters, and I'll probably see that once I get back into it and finish. Kotomi's story was apparently really good, so we'll see. But yeah, Taku Trucker says, rate my top 5 list of shows that need another season. 5, Chrome Shelled Regios. No clue what that is. So I'm going to give it a big fat 10, because I'm sure you know what you're talking about. 4, Gate. Yes.
Absolutely.
We've talked about that one to death. Yes. 3, Irina the Vampire Cosmonaut.
No.
I
think that it felt good. And
it could, and now whatever it gets into next could be amazing. And if that's the case, then sure. But I don't feel like, amongst all this other stuff that I really want a sequel of, that would be on my list. Yes, I would love it, but it felt comfortable at the end. Yes, it tried to do that thing where it suddenly jumping to different locations and showing characters that are obviously unique and will be in the next storyline, but I didn't really feel like, gosh, I need the next part. Why did you stop mid-page? It did not have that feeling, which I thought was really good, so... Dance in the Vampire Bund.
This one is on my list of shame, and I am scared to death of it. I want to watch it, but I am scared to death of it.
I don't remember if I watched that one.
That apparently is the has one of the more questionable scenes in all of anime history. So I am very, very interested in watching it, but for an artistic aspect, but at the same time, I'm very scared of it.
And then the Asterisk War. No, I don't want no more. I don't want no more. I don't want no more.
I like an Asterisk War. I could do some more of it.
Every time I think about Asterisk War, I go, why didn't Chivalry Fell Knight get a sequel? Like, Asterisk War got one, and it's like, why didn't Chivalry Fell Knight? Because they were on the same season, and it's like, oh, we're still doing Asterisk War. Well, what about Chivalry Fell Knight? But yeah,
Chivalry Fell Knight. I would love more seasons of that. Faster than I would Asterisk War, but I do like Asterisk War.
Yeah, I didn't have a problem with Asterisk War. Like I said, I just like Chivalry Fell Knight more. But no, I do have plans on making a video here soon that's going to cover my, like, these shows need a sequel. Thankfully, some of them have already been announced for having a sequel. Like Spice and Wolf technically should be getting a re-adaptation, but we'll see. But yeah, there's a lot of shows out there that just, like, you know, Kageki Shoujo here recently is a prime example. It's just he shows that, like, why this show versus this one? Every time a new season of something that I'm like, that wasn't that great of a show, why is it getting a sequel? I always think about that, so it would be fun to really kind of narrow that down, especially. But yeah, I think of that entire list you have. I think Gate. I would love another Gate. Gate was so fun. So, Seismic says, does it feel like anime has been more likely to get sequels in the last few years than, say, anime from 10? Sounds like you guys are all like reading into what we're talking about in the podcast and posting it in the past. It seemed like anime is getting sequels for the last few years than, say, anime 10 years ago. Yeah, that's because it's a funny thing because we're getting sequels of anime from 10 years ago. It feels like if we have a good show and it has good enough source material, it is a high chance of picking up additional seasons. Yeah,
it should just
it's a good new normal.
Yeah, it should be a lot more. It's one of those things that I kind of wish. In some ways, I'm gonna put this out there. I'm giving a lot of leeway because I think that a lot of these studios feel like they're more in tune with their audience, but on the flip side, it should almost be an automatic thing. I don't understand. I do get the manga bait thing. We've been living with it for 30 some odd years. So we get the manga bait thing. It's been a part of it for years. But at the same time, it's one of those that you would think that, I think that when we were talking about, in particular, Spice and Wolf at some point, we were talking about the tome that they had released it, and I said, I don't understand why they're not doing either more seasons or redoing this. And strike while the iron is hot. There is an obvious market for that show. Why is it not happening? I don't get it. I don't understand the mindset of these studios when they're looking at these possibly very valuable properties and just going, I guess one season will be enough. I mean,
I would probably give the argument against that, and that's probably more of the idea that they are probably, yes, they might see the fandom gets built from the anime and they feel that it's successful, but the problem is that the moment that they see that, they're not going to commit to more seasons because it might flop. So yes, when they get to like the first few episodes broadcast and they're seeing that it's helping with their source material, the source material sales are going up, everybody's getting excited for the series, it's getting a lot of popularity, the anime is success. But then if they think about that, at that point, they're going to go, okay, let's plan for a second season because obviously this is doing good. Well, let's wait a little bit. Let's see if people enjoy the rest of this core, because it could fall apart. At some point in the story, it could offend people and people get upset. They would probably want to wait until towards the end of that season and then go, yeah, this did really well. Okay, let's do a second season. And the studio goes, whoa, we're already booked. Like these studios are booked for like a year at least. I would assume that every studio is at least looking forward to a year of booking. And so it's like the whole issue with what studio happens. What studio just gets clowned with a bunch of objects, and then what happens? MAPPA goes, oh, we'll handle that one. We'll take care of that one. You don't have time for that one. We'll take care of that. That's the ongoing joke with what studio right now is everything's getting passed off to MAPPA. So I would argue that there's probably more in the idea that they can't just say, okay, this did really well. Hey, studio, keep going. Like, no. We're booked already. You gotta wait. We have plans of doing this show in fall. We can't do your show right now. You'll have to wait till next year. Now, yes, I think the thing that's the growing trend right now, which is really nice, is that, and it seemed like a lot, especially last year, it's all these studios not studios, all these, the owners of licenses and production committees and publishers were going, at the end of this episode, at the end of the last episode or something like that, or maybe right on Twitter right then, at that point, another season's coming. Don't worry. I like that. It doesn't have to be immediate. It doesn't have to be like, okay, we're just going to continue on the next season. I understand they can't do that. But at least say, there's a second season coming. Don't worry. Because that helps me out when, like, freaking Spirit Chronicles took too long to announce that one. But I was frustrated. Like, that was a nasty, very, very source material bait. But sure enough, they came around the corner and said, oh, we're having another season. It's like, then why'd you make that really crappy last episode that looked like you were trying to shove a bunch of stuff into the screen at the same time? It's kind of frustrating in that regard. So
no, and that's a good answer. I mean, I don't think that's a catch-all. The other thing that I that would give me pause is more of the filler aspect. I don't want shows to have filler.
Oh.
I just want plain, just do the story. And that's, like I said, I just don't think that it's. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of different stories, and to me, it just should be a matter of picking up a property, and if it's viable as a storyline. I mean, some of these,
it would be interesting if random side tangent, I know, but it would be interesting if they would come to a time where the studios themselves would license the property.
Yeah.
Because we're always used to a production committee going to a studio and saying, we want you to adapt this light novel so that we can sell more light novels, obviously. And it's basically an advertisement. When is it going to be a time where the studio goes, okay, we want to buy into this property. We want a license to animate this, and we're going to animate the whole thing. We're going to have rights to sell the merchandise. We're going to have rights to sell the anime Blu-rays. We're going to have the rights to selling the streaming rights. All that stuff. That would be a really interesting twist to the typical.
And that's I guess kind of the direction that I'm thinking.
Kind of what Side Games Studios is doing. I mean, it's technically the same company, so
just like I've said, flip the entire thing on in, and instead of selling the animation, sell or buy the property and then sell the property to the customer. I think it's very possible.
I mean, that's technically what Kyoto Animation does.
Yeah.
They essentially have people come to them and say, here's my writing. And they go, oh, you win an award. Now we're going to basically bleed the hell out of this property. And it works. And I'm hoping that the person that wrote it gets all the money they need. But that's the idea there, is that they're getting the properties and they're consuming it and producing things out of it. And they're making all the money from it. Yeah, there's the offshoots. Like, I think Kyoka was technically like a Katakawa, I believe, property. But for the most part, like Violet Evergarden was... Somebody brought their writing to them. They won an award for best writing, and it got turned into an anime and a huge franchise. It's incredible. And again, that's why Kyoto Animation, despite the fact not making a show every season with crappy quality, is so successful. And they have they teach their own students and everything in their animations, because they have a great system built. And I kind of wish that more companies, that'd be great to more companies have Shaft have an award for best writing and bring in their own properties and write their own, publish that stuff themselves and everything. It would be interesting to see that more often in the anime sphere. And I think, again, there's a possibility that you would see more animators more happy if the studio itself was gaining all the profits. Now, granted, that doesn't mean the studio has to pay their animators better because they're reaping all the profits, but it sort of houses that positivity. And I think, again, if studios can learn lessons from Kyoto Animation, that'd be great. I mean, we were starting to theorize on that being a possibility with that new, what was it? Join, something like that. Setup that they were doing with Cloverworks, Wit, and Aniplex, and what was the publisher? I forget. It wasn't Shueisha, was it?
I don't remember.
It was one of the big publishers. Hopefully that kind of gets that kind of set up, because that's technically Kyoto Animation. It's kind of the same setup. It's a publisher. It's a publication or publisher. It's technically another publisher, but not like direct publisher. And then a producer, and then studios. So I don't know. We'll see. Sorry, I completely side tangent. What were we talking about? Oh, sequels. It is definitely happening a lot more now. I'm happy that it's happening a lot more now. I think there is definitely a group of people that are anime onlys. We're branching off into source materials and stuff, but there's a large group of people that just don't want to read. They don't want to read manga. They don't want to read light novels. They just want to watch colorful pictures on the screen. They want to sit down and relax at the end of the day. They don't like reading books or whatever. They just want to look at a TV and be entertained. And for the longest time, one of the biggest stains in anime for the longest time, anime specifically, the biggest stain has always been unfinished stories. It sucks. It does. As much as I've been, as many shows as I have watched, I don't know, 2,000 plus whatever now, as many shows I've watched, the one thing I hate the most is that 99.9% of them will never be finished.
Yep.
That's really sad to think.
Well, and
99.9% of the shows that I have watched, which again is in the thousands, will never be finished. They're stories that will never have a conclusion.
I actually, with Tenchi, that was one of my first quote unquote manga bait shows. And I always hated the fact that I never knew the ending of Tenchi. And I understand now, several years, not 20 years later, but several years in, I started to understand why that was a thing. And now it's one of those things of looking back and how frustrated I was. And at the time I didn't understand why there was no ending to Tenchi. And now I understand why. And it's like one of those silly things of we mention Tenchi quite often of this is one of the shows that we really, really loved. So imagine little Chris 20 years ago watching little Chris watching Tenchi and not understanding why the heck Tenchi's they never got into the whole Jirai powers and all that stuff, and little Chris didn't understand why they never went back to all that stuff. So yeah,
no, that's a good question. Was it better back when we didn't know? Like, I mean, I perfectly honest, I never knew a lot of the shows that I watched continued. I thought that was the anime. I didn't know that there was a Tenchi manga. I didn't know that there was a Akira. I never knew that there was more Akira. When I watched the movie, I thought that was it. And there was no thought process in my head that they made a movie and original the ending. And so it was probably better back when we didn't know. But now it's too hard not to know, because when you're watching a show, literally everybody's saying, just wait till what's next. And you're going, wait, oh, it's a manga. Okay, never mind. Don't spoil it, please.
It's just like I at some point I got introduced to Tenchi in Tokyo, and I was like, oh yeah, it's a continuation of the show, and I think she's really adorable, and I really fell in love with her.
Where the hell is everybody?
What the heck is going on here?
Where's Ayaka? Where is everybody? Big plot twist. But no, it is funny to think that there was a time when we just didn't know, and it was probably a better time then. But again, that's why I get so excited when I see original. Like Licorice Coil, Engage Kiss, especially this season. It's like, I love being able, and it's more again a product of the bad side of fandom is the people that won't keep their mouth shut. Like, my gosh, comment sections. People just don't have a filter for that kind of crap. They just, well, this is this, and this is this, so obviously this. How many spoilers I've seen for Summertime Rendering this last week was like, please, people, shut up. There is a nicety about not having, and even then, originals. Yeah, there's some cases where I kind of would like to see more of certain things. Originals are typically more sound in their conclusion, but there's a lot of cases like Slice of Life. Slice of Life Originals obviously is one of those ones where, yeah, I would love to have an after story for the story. You know, continue on the story. I'm really loving these characters. I want to see more of where they go from here. So, yeah. But it's good. I do like that there's an increase. I love even more how quickly they are to announcing it sometimes, because, again, I think that's when you're at your hypest point is at the very end, and you just want more, and you're clamoring for more. And when you hear that, yes, there's a second season around the corner, it gives you that hope for, this isn't it. This isn't it. I'm going to get more. Good. And but sadly, most times out of 10, it's not going to have an announcement. The shows that you're most happy about, the ones you enjoy the most, Ranking of Kings and Kageki Shoujo, like I said here recently, they're not the ones getting the sequels. It's In Another World with My Smartphone. It's Spirit Chronicles. But again, as much as people hate to admit it, those are the ones that are probably more beneficial for them, that continue on adapting, and they don't really care to continue on with Ranking of Kings and Kageki Shoujo and stuff. So,
and we've even talked about that. It's marketability of the figures is really what it comes down to. Because
that comes the shock of something like Saints Magic Powers Omnipotent. That got a sequel, and it's like, what? That one? So it's like, and there's off cases. Obviously, there's cases where it's like, I never thought this would ever get a sequel. If you asked me last year which shows are going to get sequels, Saints Magic Powers Omnipotent would have been the last one I would have said it would get a sequel. Yes, I can see Spirit Chronicles. Yes, I can see Tsukimichi Moonlit Fantasy. I can see a lot of these shows getting sequels, but again, going back to what we said before, assuming we know what's going through the minds of these companies that are producing this stuff, it's sometimes very hard to really gauge. But yes, you typically do see it's because of what they can sell. Do they want to sell the source material? Well, is the source material improving? They're probably going to keep adapting because they want to keep that fervor going for the series. Is it to sell figures with something like Spirit Chronicles, something like that? Yeah, probably going to be for merchandise. So.
And that's kind of what I was going back with what I was saying at the beginning. A lot of cases, it really comes down to, I don't understand why. To me, like, Spice and Wolf is almost the pinnacle of, I don't understand this beast that they are literally unleashing upon themselves. Because, I mean, Holo is absolutely figure money gold.
That show's been gone for forever, and you still, every single few months, you would get a new figure.
It's mind-boggling of why, and maybe that's just the reason why they're not doing it, is because
they're already selling enough. They don't care.
Yeah, they're like,
we don't need an advertisement. It sells itself.
Make a new Holo. Who cares? Yeah, we'll keep them happy for a little longer.
You just make another figure. You stick it in the showroom. Everybody goes, "What the heck is this?" And they find out about the source material. They start reading the source material. They buy the figure at the same time. And then, it sells itself. You don't have to make an advertisement.
And then on the flip side, Hatsune Miku, they've got so many freaking, and it's like an unlimited printing machine of money, and they don't have to do anything. And it's like, if they don't have to, why do it? I mean, why put the money into an anime if the negative anime is printing money with Holo figures? So
it does. I mean, that brings up a great point. Is what is it? As I'm happy, I'm thoroughly happy that it's getting a new adaptation, but it does beg the question of, like, why now? Like, are they seeing a dip finally? Is it finally starting to dip, and they want to repump that hype? A lot of people speculated at the time of the announcement of that is because they wanted to do an adaptation of Parchment and Wolf, and so maybe they want to at least tell most of that story so that they can build the hype for Parchment Wolf. But that's a lot. It's a lot of stuff to cover unless they're planning on skipping a lot of content to adapt the whole novel just to lead into Parchment Wolf. But I don't think that's the case. I really don't think that they're trying. I mean, enough that I would assume that if that was the case, they would just adapt the first Parchment Wolf. Or the first part of Parchment Wolf, just to get people to read that. Because I mean, it's not stopping them from doing the VR thing, which is technically a story that was supposed to be at the very end of the story. I don't know. It's a big question mark, but I'm not complaining. And again, my high hopes are that it's going to be from the beginning again, and do the whole thing again from the very beginning, readapt it, don't skip things. And yes, my biggest hope is for full adaptation. I doubt it, but I really do hope it's full adaptation. But I think we'll cut it from there. We covered some ground, but we're definitely not caught up yet. We did knock out quite a bit, but of course a lot of this is people putting their mouths on here for the live streams. But yeah, keep them coming. Definitely exciting. A lot of great questions this episode. Had a lot of fun discussing a lot of this stuff. So I appreciate everybody who sent us a message. Again, if you want to know how to, go to otakuspirit.com. There is a contact us button there. You can submit it that way. I might take that down because I think I'm getting more spam than comments, and I think most people are submitting through Discord anyways, so I might switch to the exclusivity of that in the email. But I'll let you guys know on the podcast when that happens, but I'm sure I'll probably leave a message on there saying that I'm shutting it down. But it's becoming too annoying to deal with the spams versus what we're receiving for comments. So either way, you can go to our Discord. There's a link at otakuspirit.com. Join the Discord. Talk with some really great people on there. Have a lot of fun. And again, you can submit your questions in the Submit Questions channel. Additionally, they have watch-alongs currently doing Kyosogiga. We also have a manga and light novel club that's starting up. So if you want to read along with other people with manga and light novel, there's that bit. I'm kind of surprised how many of our listeners and folks in the Discord are big on the source materials. I think for so long, I don't think we really had that much discussion on our forums when we had the forums with source materials. So we definitely grabbed quite a few people that are really passionate about the source material. So it's really great. So But yeah, as always, we definitely appreciate you all for your support. Telling other people about us is one of the greatest ways that you can help us. It doesn't even cost you a dime. All you have to do is tweet out to somebody, kind of whisper in your coworkers' ears, tacospirit.com. Just saying. Something like that. Don't be creepy. But yeah, additionally, if you can, we greatly appreciate if you consider supporting us monetarily. We have a Patreon. We have a tips link on our website, tacospirit.com. Additionally, if you're listening to us on YouTube or you're browsing our YouTube channel, youtube.com/otakuspirit, there's a super thanks button that you can click and support us that way as well. We greatly appreciate that everybody that supports us. It means a great deal to us. And y'all take care.
Os.